eggs, bunnies, pastels, baby chickens, chocolate, hot cross buns, hunting for eggs, camping, autumn, frostier mornings, toasted marshmallows. Sorry, no, that's just Australia. Fictional holiday magical beings that bring you things. Hello, imperfect person. It sounds like another Christian holiday based on pagan traditions that's being led by consumerism and unsustainable practices. Yay!
The bunny, whoa, I love the bunny.
I freaking love Easter. I love the traditions, the fluffy merch and adorable pastel decor. I make batches and batches of sourdough hot cross buns. I force my very adult family to take part in an Easter egg hunt complete with homemade hunting bags. We get a 4-day weekend, and as a kid, it's the first holiday that you get since, well, New Year's and school went back. In Australia, the sweaty ass summer is finally behind me, and the crisp, cool autumn mornings are starting to roll in the promise of the winter ahead. Most importantly, I love mini eggs. These stupid, adorable, egg-shaped chocolate balls covered in pastel pink, white, purple, and yellow, and delicately speckled to make it look like a real egg. They ruin me every year. And this year, my ruin was accompanied by an existential crisis, a realization of my own consumption around this holiday and ways that maybe we're missing the point of Easter. So join me as we take a bit of a deep dive in where Easter came from, how it kind of got to this consumerist hellscape that it is nowadays, and maybe ways that we can move forward and still enjoy a little bit of a celebration altogether. And, well, how I'm dealing with my addiction.
I don't love my mom or my dad, just the bunny.
I know people who work at Big W.
Back it up.
On December 27, religiously, the Coles and Woolies around Australia are suddenly flush with Easter paraphernalia. And as soon as I see them, I begin my stockpile. Mini eggs for the Easter season, they're a coveted good. They are the perfect Easter egg. They're small enough to grab a little handful for a treat. They are delightfully pastel, and they make any corporate candy jar awash with Easter spirit. And yet, every year, without fail, since I've discovered these tiny little pastel beauties, they sell out in the weeks leading up to Easter. And no one talks about this. I scour the shelves for my pastel little beauties before they disappear for another year. And I kind of binged my last bag while I was watching the season 3 finale of Lost.
On Lost.
And every year, as I'm a week out from Easter, my annually sparked chocolate addiction is getting harder and harder to support. The supply runs low and my contacts are showing up empty. So I end up having to go cold turkey. And this year, a little quicker than the previous years, I look back at the damage I've done in my consumatory stupor. I've fed myself with obscene amounts of sugar and cocoa butter substitutes that are often found in Australian chocolate, and often very rarely any actual chocolate to be seen. My sleep is ruined. I have crazy dreams if I eat chocolate before bed. My sugar cravings go crazy. I have wild peaks and crashes of energy throughout the day. And Just generally, I feel pretty gross. Then I look at my waist. Since essentially New Year, I've calculated that I've had on average 1 packet every week,
Bruh.
which then when weighing each of the bags weigh about 4 grams worth of plastic. And so I can't calculate in my head off the dome, and I forgot to do it before I recorded. So this is how much plastic I was producing every time I've gone through this cycle. And we all know how I feel about generating plastic waste, especially if it's wildly unnecessary. So despite my dopamine deprived brain seeking comfort in these sugary pastel chocolates, it got me thinking a little more about my mini egg addiction, sustainability, and maybe the true meaning of Easter.
The bunny, yeah, I love the bunny.
I grew up a Christian, and despite the whole tradition being derived from a pagan tradition, that sounds familiar. Easter is a big deal. The story behind Easter is the biggest tragedy yet the biggest celebration in the Christian calendar. Jesus died for our sins and then rose again in proof of his divinity. Thanks, bud. Fast forward to me as an adult, I find some profound resonance in attending a dawn service with a large congregation on a Sunday morning, hot coffees and Ugg boots in tow, and then greeting people once the sun is risen with, "He is risen," and they respond without fail, "He is risen indeed." For whatever reason, getting a consistent response from adults when you make an arbitrary statement seems like the funniest inside joke that no one ever laughs at, and I absolutely love it. But Easter is pretty removed from the real meaning of the holiday. In fact, the original Easter was a pagan holiday, celebrating the coming of spring, shout out to Northern Hemisphere pals, the renewal and rebirth after a long and dark winter. This is where the imagery of like chicks and pastels and bunnies kind of come from, all symbols of fertility and new life. But I'm not here to nerd out about paganism and religiously toned holidays. I am here to talk about how our capitalist world and consumption-obsessed society has drastically changed what was originally a holiday for connecting with community, celebrating our history, and reconnecting with nature. In Australia, we get a 4-day weekend, and it usually is smack bang in the middle of the first term holidays, which is pretty exciting as a kid because it's the first holidays of the year. My family used to always go camping for Easter, and so I loved getting to put on cozy sweaters and sit around playing silly board games and essentially eat my weight's worth in chocolate and try not to spew everywhere. As I mentioned before, Easter kind of appears on Coles and Woolies shelves, usually around the 27th of December. And so hot cross buns you usually eat when you feel the least judged by your core group around you. Specifically, I generally allow myself maybe a month or two. However, this year I did buy a $2 discounted packet of hot cross buns on January 14th and was berated by my mother for those. However, when we rediscovered these things about a month later in the freezer, all of us were super stoked to get on the hot cross bun trend. The peak of all Easter celebrations is the Easter egg hunt. When we were kids, Mum would hide a big egg or bunny out in the bush for us to go and hunt when we woke up. We'd be up at the crack of dawn out to find each of our respective big bunnies or eggs. And there'd be, a few smaller ones scattered amongst the she oak trees if we could find them. I still think about whether or not there are some that we never found and they've just kind of melted away and hardened and crystallized, and that bright pink foil can be found decades from now by some random human being. Anyway, and then we'd all go absolutely ham on chocolate. We would obviously have to then go to church. So we were all sugar crashing by the time we were getting to the end of the sermon, and then Sunday school would hype us back up again with cordial and arrowroot biscuits. But I can't help as I get older, and I guess before I have kids of my own, the traditions feel really rehearsed. They've lost kind of their meaning to them. They seem unpurposeful and based on consumption. There's no whimsy, there's no magic. My mum buys all of us kids eggs and ones for our partners as well, but usually she just hands them straight to us. We don't even have to hunt for them anymore. A couple of days ago, my mum and I were grocery shopping, and after my scour on the shelves for my mini eggs, I came up empty yet again. My mum was looking at the big eggs and asked me which one I wanted for myself and my partner. I said I would prefer a vegan or a sugar-free chocolate, as they're usually a little better for you and maybe kinder to the planet than the glass and a half themselves. She begrudgingly came with me to have a look and was gobsmacked by the $10 price tag for a small vegan bunny. I told her not to worry, and then I remembered something she'd mentioned to me the other day. We were wandering through Bunnings and I pointed out all the beautiful bulbs that were on display because it's the time of year in Australia where you start planting bulbs for the winter and spring flowers. And she turns to me and goes,
Oh yeah, Mama used to buy us bulbs every Easter instead of an Easter egg or bunny.
sorry, what? Where did this tradition go? So I said to her in the grocery store, hey, I would actually prefer it if you just bought me flowers or a bulb. That would be something that I would enjoy a lot longer and probably feel not so shitty about when I ate it. And, well, I guess I'd feel kind of shitty if I ate a bulb. But either way, I feel like it would have been a more useful gift to get for Easter. And so we moved on without much more thought. But I pondered further and deeper into my little imperfect sustainability logic brain and ended up here.
I gave everything that I had for the bunny.
Suggesting to a Christian that we reconnect with the paganistic roots of the Easter celebrations is a little blasphemous. But I hold a deep respect for nature and the world around me. And I don't think me pal Jesus would be too stoked on us celebrating his ultimate sacrifice by consuming endless amounts of chocolate still being made by a global conglomerate that harvests palm oil. I reckon we could do better. So, keeping the respect for the religious undertones, peppered with the fun and joy of getting a holiday and catching up with loved ones, here are some considerations if you would like to make your Easter a little more sustainable.
I feel like you need to be visibly upset.
In Australia, the most prolific Easter chocolates are Cadbury Dairy Milk, Lindt, Darrell Lea, and my dad's old favourite still clinging on, Red Tulip. As I mentioned, Australian chocolates are made with a different formula to reduce melting in our sweltering weather. We usually have more milk and more sugar than most other countries, and the taste is pretty different. But all chocolate stems from the same thing, cacao. Chocolate is produced from the cacao bean mixed with a bunch of add-ins depending on your location. Cacao is used for making chocolate and is sourced from farms around West Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. Caring for and harvesting cocoa is full on, with most of the work being done manually. There are cacao farms which have drastically impactful practices harming the planet and the people around them. Deforestation, child labour, and fair wages for farmers are just a few from the top of the dome. The biggest being chocolate is getting scarce. With global climate changes and increased weather events, combined with other factors, cacao bean farming is getting harder and less prolific, creating a huge demand for a diminishing product, driving high prices and reducing the margins used to invest in more ethical production. This could encourage big corporations to start cutting corners, seek out cheaper, less sustainably considered cocoa farms. Worst of all, we would all end up paying for it. Once the cacao has been processed, they add in cocoa butters, milk, sugar, and all the good stuff. A lot of larger corporations substitute cocoa butter for like vegetable oils or, more concerningly, palm oil. Palm oil is detrimental to rainforests around the globe, and you've got to be careful when they slap a sticker on saying it's sustainably sourced palm oil, because even with ethical considerations in place, it's still palm oil. So there's many different ways a humble chocolate egg can be impacting the planet around us, and I haven't even got to the packaging yet.
Bruh.
What I suggest and highly encourage is for you to buy from local artisans, seek out organic or vegan or plastic-free or sugar-free chocolates like I do. I don't do this primarily for my health. It's a pretty rad side effect though. It's usually because if an organization has gone to great lengths to create a good product that considers veganism or sugar reduction, there's a high chance they've also had significant consideration into the ethical and sustainable production of their product. Read the labels and do your research. Your body will probably thank you too. Alright, I was getting cold, so. Okay. I hear you. We can't all be spending $20 for a bag of little eggs, and you've got kids that you want to still take part in the traditions, and maybe you don't particularly care about the religious undertones, and that's like honestly fine if you just enjoy the holiday itself. So you usually buy the big bag of wrapped eggs from Cadbury because they're like $2 a bag, and it gives the kids everything that they can go and hunt for, a little bit of chocolate, something that they can get excited about. You've got to give what you can afford and create some memories along the way. Sure, I get it. It's just part of being imperfectly sustainable. If you're not focusing too much on the actual quality or the production of the chocolate itself, then think about the ways that the product that you are buying has different impacts on the world. One of the biggest ways that I focus on it is in the packaging. So then I ask you, what packaging can you reduce? Most of the cheap and accessible Easter eggs are wrapped in foil, wrapped in a plastic bag. The plastic we still can't recycle in Australia, despite the Cadbury bag still saying that RedCycle exists. But the foil, it's aluminium. And yeah, supposedly 100% recyclable, but it's only recyclable if it's big enough to be sorted. So start an aluminium ball. Go on. Get every single wrapper of every single tiny egg that you've just given all your kids or you've shared amongst your colleagues. Get every single little bit of foil and wrap it up into a ball and keep making it bigger. And then take the big bunnies and the big eggs that you have at Easter time and keep wrapping that into your aluminium ball and keep going until eventually you steal your neighbour's aluminium foil as well. And that aluminium foil can add to your aluminium ball, and eventually you're going to have the biggest aluminium ball that's ever existed in all of the world, and you are going to be the king of aluminium balls. Or, just have it the size of your fist. Once it's this big, it can be processed. But the individual wrappers of every single little egg that you have individually, they can't be processed in recycling and so can't be recycled. Crazy, right? So get your tin ball going. You won't beat me. Now, because foil is recyclable and the plastic bags aren't, just try and avoid them altogether. If you can buy individually wrapped eggs in foil without the plastic, you're probably doing significantly better than most. Try to look for them in boxes. I know Cadbury's put out a couple in boxes this year, although those boxes still have plastic lining, but regardless, it's still boxes and it's a step in the right direction. The thing is, we already know all of this. It's nothing new. You know that plastic isn't recyclable unless we've got the RedCycle bins. Please shout out if you have RedCycle or soft plastics recycling where you are from, because I would love to do a deep dive on what the hell happened, because we had collection places at most of our supermarkets for a little while and then they all just disappeared and there was a bit of a conspiracy about it all. Anyway, I'm just here as a gentle reminder that Easter can be a little bit more sustainable if you just sort of stop and think about things a little bit more. And as we've kind of discussed many other times, thinking a little bit further about the sustainability of something can also then improve your health, your family's health, and your community as well. But what can I say? Because mini eggs grip me literally every year, so do what you can. Many of us in the sustainability realm are fed up with these overconsumptive dates. I have friends who outright veto Christian calendar holidays because of the capitalist insistence on profiteering on what was once a humble religious celebration. This has ruined the majority of the festivities for them, and so they'd rather just not take part. But I'm a sucker for tradition, and I love going all in and getting my decorations on and being part of the community in a weird and wonderful way. This is your reminder. You can celebrate however you see fit or not, and that's fine. You don't even have to go pastel or have a bunny or do any of that, but you might want to be part of the community a little bit more or celebrate something else for this time of year, but still get those 4 days of holiday. I've seen a big push in recent years for parents to get those refillable plastic eggs so they can put their candy of choice in for the Easter egg hunt. I love this idea. It gives parents the options to choose healthier snacks, and the plastic wouldn't really start degrading until maybe a few years from now, and then just add a few microplastics back into our environment, just adding a little bit to the overall problem. What? When I asked my mum for ideas about this video, she came to me in all her Christian glory and said,
Come back to Jesus.
what would Jesus do? The sentiment is nice though, so I kept it in. I want to encourage you to seek ways to celebrate beyond the eggs and the Easter hunt. Connect with your community, connect with loved ones, and connect with yourself. Be thankful for the seasons past and what's to come, and be present and find joy in the moment. For me, as I said before, I started making hot cross buns around 2020. It's taking me a few years, and now that I've gotten into the swing of having a starter, I've gotten into sourdough hot cross buns, and I have perfected the greatest sourdough hot cross bun recipe with sultanas and dates, and I share it every year with my family and colleagues, baking batches for them to have for the Easter weekend. Don't at me below, it's a coveted recipe. But you figure out what you love about the holiday. Is it a meal with friends and family? Is it the best weather all year? Is it going on a holiday with your kids? I'm still adamant that we should really get into sharing flowers and bulbs and things that people can plant, because why not? There's native Australian ones too, not just the daffodils. There's a plethora of native Australian bulbs for us to choose from and have some colour in our gardens over winter and spring. Get in the garden, plant some flowers, get ready for the seasons ahead. And if you're actually in spring for the Spring Festival of Easter, well, lucky you. Still get in your garden. Be outside, experience the new season, and soak it up. It's the last time you're ever going to experience this season this year, so make the most of it. Our planet is awesome and deserves our attention as often as we can give it. Just for some different ideas, these were some random things that I found online that other places around the world do. Leave some comments below about what you do for Easter, if it's different than anything that I mentioned today. It's a little stock standard, but decorating hard-boiled eggs and eating them afterwards as well. Don't just let them go bad and not eat them, because it's kind of pointless. For this year, maybe try duck or quail eggs. I think the chicken eggs is kind of an issue, although I guess ducks and quails are also birds. Maybe plaster of Paris? Another tradition that's pretty stock standard, but maybe we don't think about it in the non-religious sense, is Lent. Lent gives people the opportunity to give up something, and in the raw meaning of what it originally was for people to fast. And so nowadays, a lot of people take on the tradition rather than, fasting for religious purposes. They might give up, alcohol or chocolate before Easter. So then on Easter morning, when Jesus rises from the dead, they get to feast and enjoy something that they haven't had for quite some time. One of the ones that I found in Scandinavia was that they hike up mountains to see the sunrise and observe the weather and try to figure out if it was going to be a decent summer or not. My favorite one probably is in France. There's a place where they make a 15,000 egg omelette. Do with that what you will. Go off. So how about you take a pause? Think about what's important to you. Is it just the fact that you get to see and spend time with family? Is it the eggs? Do you need eggs? Do they need eggs? Do they need an Easter bunny? Be thankful for all the things you have around you and celebrate the small things that bring you joy. Maybe start something new with your friends. Hold a craft-a-noon or hold a garden party. Get everybody to plant native plants and take some home and put them in their garden. However you celebrate Easter, just stop and pause and think about what's really the important part and whether you can do things a little differently this time around. I know I'm reflecting on my consumatory stupor, and maybe mini eggs don't need to be as prolific in my life every single year as they have been, but just remember that being imperfect is part of it all. So be proud we're even here in the first place. You did it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a really joyful Easter and get to indulge just a little bit. I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys. Oh, and remember, what would Jesus do? This, just...
Hunt. You can't really tell how big it is.
It's the size of my friggin' body. What do you mean? It's literally the length of my torso. Does it look like it? Another one! There's been 4 planes that have flown over since I've tried recording this. Another plane! Ah!